Today I'm going to try to draw this garden vase and balustrade in Tbilisi, Georgia. And you know what? I think today's little object turned out a lot better than yesterday's. And I'm eager to see what you think about it. I still trip headfirst into many of the same pitfalls, which we'll talk about in a minute. But on the whole, I do feel like I learned a thing or two. If you're new here, hello, I'm learning to draw, so don't judge me too harshly. And I'm traveling as well, so that's nice. Drawing and traveling and learning and talking. If that sounds interesting to you, as I'm sure it does, subscribe to my channel. I would love that. Anyway, so first things first, why did I choose this reference? Besides the fact that I thought it was pretty, which is true today and is almost certainly always going to be true. Well, it was the contrast. And up to this point, I'm not sure that's ever been a reason for me to draw something. I'm usually drawn to the shapes or the overall composition more than anything else, but I happened to walk past this area as you see it while the sun was shining, kind of backlighting the scene. And it was specifically the little pillar things, which actually I wrote it down, the balusters, apparently, which are the little pillar things of the balustrade. Yeah, so it was those that caught my eye because of the way the light was hitting them. You can see in the reference that there's a clear distinction between one side and the other. The left sides are in the light and the right sides are in shadow. I felt like I had a decent chance of capturing that, so I decided to give it a shot. Before starting, I sketched this one out in my pocket sketchbook and I noticed two things immediately. The first was how by drawing the length of the balustrade first, whether the top or bottom or both, doesn't matter, I would lose this middle part that juts inward and to the right, making up that platform where the vase sits. So I made sure to make a note of that on the paper by slightly deviating from those initial horizontal lines. Doesn't seem like a big deal and really wouldn't have been had I maintained awareness of that piece, but I couldn't trust myself to do that. So I made it a point to build out that part of the drawing before moving on to the rest. The second thing was about the balusters, or the little pillar things if you prefer. In my quick sketch, I made these dark squiggly shapes as placeholders, and it worked really well for me. Rather than fuss over exactly where each one would sit and proportions and blah, 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 I just scribbled down these nothing shapes as quickly as possible, and that gave me a pretty good sense of what to do with them. I did exactly the same thing here, and I'm so glad that I did. A significant portion of each one will end up in shadow anyway, so the messy lines don't detract from the drawing, and primarily, it just helped me get out of my head. Coming from yesterday, and with those pillars from a few videos back still lingering in my head, I admittedly went into this with some fear of objects. To be clear, when I say objects, I'm talking about things like this vase or yesterday's fountain or statue, or to some extent even pillars. Essentially anything that isn't foliage or standard architecture, I guess. I know anything could be an object, but you get what I mean. Anyway, I wanted to note that fear and find a way through it that wouldn't make it worse. So this vase structurally is nearly, if not literally identical to the fountain. So I wanted to take what I did yesterday and not do that today. I didn't want to hyperfixate on any one component of the vase, and instead try to visualize it as one thing. Did I succeed in this? No. Obviously, I didn't. I still focused on the small things and really couldn't get past exaggerating them. Therefore, the vase ends up taller and more slender than the reference. Ouch, just like the fountain. However, I wasn't going to slip all the way back into yesterday's mistakes. So while the shape didn't turn out really, maybe I could make up for it with the details. Maybe by crafting this illusion of detail, I could lessen the impact of the incorrect proportions. Just kidding. No, I couldn't. That didn't work either. Every step I take, I get closer and closer to what I want to avoid. However, However, number two, however, again, I still had one trick up my sleeve, but it was the most unlikely of the bunch to work. It was the one I'd practiced the least by far, so there was a high probability of failure, and that's shading. Maybe I could save this with shading. Arguably the worst part of yesterday's fountain, but maybe possibly today's one and only saving grace. And that was it. That's just what I needed. With the entire backside of the balustrade in shadow, I was already mentally prepared for shading in a huge portion of this, and I knew that it would have to be particularly dark, much darker than I'm used to sell that the sunlight is just completely avoiding this side and drenching the other. Yesterday, my background was all diffused and low contrast. There was a lot of atmosphere, so boldly shading the fountain never crossed my mind, and it probably shouldn't have been that way anyway. But today, everything I'm drawing is harshly lit and requires the same treatment across the board. So by the time I finished the balustrade, I looked up to my vase, realizing my opportunity, and I took it. I boldly shaded it in to the best of my beginner ability. I think I'm still a beginner, right? It's only been 90 something days. And while it didn't entirely solve my problem, it still worked wonders. So the vase looks like it belongs in the scene, and man, I couldn't ask for more than that. So today's drawing might be another one of those relatively significant steps forward in this process. I've talked about that in, I don't know, like 2 or 3 other videos that felt similar. But with this one, I think it's my adoption or acceptance maybe of this loose sketch beforehand, specifically in pen, and this high contrast approach to shading. Not that I've never done it, but it's the way that I've approached it here that stands out to me. Anyway, overall, I'm happy with this, and I really hope that it signals what's to come. So what do you think? Let me know, like the video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, etc. I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.